It's all right. I've come back.
What on earth are you talking about, Lucy?
Haven't you been wondering where I was?
You'll have to hide for longer than that if you want people to start looking for you.
But I've been away for hours and hours.
I hardly notice when you're here.
This is Pints with Jack, Season 8, Episode 30, Narnia Month. Narnia in the 60s and 70s. After Hours with Lazo the Greater. Welcome, friends, to Pints with Jack. This season, we've been reading chapter by chapter through Perelandra and explored Jack's bookshelf, but today we begin Narnia Month.
Woohoo!
Now, in previous seasons of Narnia Month, we discussed one of the books of the Chronicles of Narnia. But last season, we finished our last canonical book, The Last Battle. So this season, we're going to be beginning something a little different. We're now going to be going through, in order, the various cinematic and TV adaptations of the Chronicles. And so this season, we begin with a short surviving section of the 1967 live-action adaptation by ITV, which is a TV channel in the United Kingdom, as well as a 1979 feature-length American, although there is English dubbing, cartoon. And that was what you heard at the opening of this episode. It's actually how the story begins, with Lucy coming out of the wardrobe. But most importantly, we are joined today by Lazo the Greater, Lazo Major, Andrew's better half, Dr. Christin Ditchfield-Lazo. Christin, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, what have you been up to since you were last here?
Oh my goodness. Oh, lots of speaking and writing and teaching on Lewis and many other things. Andrew just hosted a Mere Christians conference at our church and had a fabulous group. We put out our Pints with Jack swag, and I got to speak on the Great Divorce. And that was the first time I've ever been invited to speak on that book. And so it was really fun for me to dig into to the things that resonate with me and to share those with others. And we're getting ready to go speak in Ireland at the C.S. Lewis Foundation conference. So
jealous.
These are things that we're working on. We're pretty excited about that.
Well, and there are still tickets available for Belfast. Belfast, of course, is where Lewis was born. He watched the Titanic being built from his house on the hill. And our closing reception will be in the Titanic Museum, and it's just going to be marvelous. And there are still spaces available. It's the first time that the Lewis Foundation has not been in either Oxford or Oxford and Cambridge. And so we're looking forward to having folks come.
And I actually have a little link with the Titanic because it left Belfast and it then went to Southampton, England, which is where I went to university.
Oh, wow.
Uni.
Okay. Were you there?
Not at the time. I'm old. I'm not that old. But when all of my university friends found out that I was going to be moving to the States, they said, I hope you get further than the Titanic.
That's great.
Oh, wow.
Well, what is everyone drinking today?
Oh, well, David sent us Athletic Brewing Company's Athletic ESB. It tastes a little hoppy to me, but it looks like a proper bitter. And so that's what I am drinking. During the conference, Matthew Clark came through, and he was our musician, and he and I enjoyed a nice bottle of Peter Kavner's Common Room Bitter. So it's a bitter month for me.
I've got my coffee.
Wonderful.
You know how I roll.
Yeah.
Love it. I'm the same as Andrew.
You got yours?
Uh-huh.
Wonderful.
I do want to say that in the next couple of months, I'll be busy and traveling. I'll be in Atlanta on June 26th with Patty Callahan. The C.S. Lewis Institute of Atlanta is having an evening conversation on Joy Davidman with me and Patty. And then the 27th, 28th, and 29th of June, I'll be at the Cathedral Church of the Advent in Birmingham, Alabama, which is Patty's hometown, and hooking up with some old friends. And I'll be giving talks on Screwtape Letters, Mere Christianity, and Lewis's best book. So if you are in the Birmingham or Atlanta area coming up, we'd love to see you.
You have to tell Patty the story that Mary Margaret naturally through an advertisement or something stumbled across her new Narnia book or through the wardrobe. Loved it. Had no idea I've ever talked with Patty. Had no idea that I've interviewed her a few different times and about that book. And when she found it out, she was so excited. And she said it was a reawakening of her imagination. It was at a time where she really needed it. And then she's excited. She just got her Becoming Mrs. Lewis book because she just thought this one was so fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. Can you dim your curtains a little bit, Matt? I mean, not that I want to see your face any better.
Well, this one's only audio, Andrew.
Oh, okay.
He basically wants you podcasting in pure darkness.
Ah, there's that shining cherubic young little face. Are you shaving yet?
I've been moisturizing nicely.
Oh, good.
My
Yes,
wife has got me on a
lovely.
beautiful facial cleansing routine.
Lovely.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you don't have
two
any
are made for
stubble or
each other.
facial hair to get in the way, so.
I don't know. I was like, well, if I can't have facial hair, I better have some good skin.
Wow. Is this what you guys talk about when I'm not here?
All
Uh-huh.
the time.
Facial care, yes. Our skin routines.
Yes. Don't ask Matt what AI says about facial care.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a revelation the first time Matt and I shared a room together when we went to a conference together. It's just like, man, this guy has a very long nighttime routine. I just sort of like brush my teeth and consider it done.
By the way, if we're still talking about the drinks, I am not a fan of this.
Oh, that's sad.
You are not a fan?
Yeah, and I say this with charitableness of like, I love Athletic Brewing. I guess I'm just not a bitters person. I've never really kind of has a English Earl Grey breakfast, English breakfast, Earl Grey tea, whatever flavor
what
to
you're
it.
getting is a little too much hop. So it's more like an English Pale Ale or an English ESB. So
Athletic Brewing, we are available for taste tests if you would like to send us another batch.
absolutely.
Peter, if his was a bitter, dominates this. This is
That
a
was-
3 out
that
of
was
10.
a bitter,
And Peter's a 10
yes.
out of 10. His is so good.
Absolutely.
All right, well, let's begin. So, as I mentioned in the introduction, today is a special episode because we're going to do not one but two adaptations. And so I sent you guys links to everything I found for an adaptation. It was live action. It was released on July 9th, 1967, and it was made for the ITV network in Britain. And there were 10 episodes made, and only, unfortunately, 2 remain. It was the first episode and the 8th episode, only a bit of the first episode. And you do have the audio for the 7th, and I managed to track all of those down. Actually, the last one I only found this morning. And I went and looked at the IMDb page, and all the actors out of this, they did pretty well. They later starred in shows and movies like The Great Escape, Doctor Who, Blake Seven, some classic sci-fi for those that know, Ever After for Drew Barrymore, Oliver, The Pink Panther Strikes Again, and also The Avengers. But I'm not talking about the Marvel Avengers. There was an English show that predated it that I still think is amazing. Actually has a terrible movie adaptation with Sean Connery. Don't watch that. But I just want to get your guys' impressions first of all from looking at these clips. What did you make of the show?
First of all, am I correct? We only have partial clips of it.
That's correct.
Okay. I tried looking. I wasn't sure if you just sent me
Matt,
a few
we
to get me
watched the
down
whole
the
thing,
path.
man.
Yeah, I was like,
what do you?
I got a little worried there because I started Googling. I was like, maybe Andrew just sent me a couple of these to watch. They're only like 5 minutes, 1 minute, 8 minutes. And then I kept searching for the other ones. I'm like, wow, there's going to be 3 others on this show. It doesn't matter if I can't find the other parts of it.
And here you have Matthew's work ethic with regards to this podcast. It'll be fine. So Matthew, you start then. What did you think of this thing?
Yeah. I have stronger thoughts on the 1979 version than I do on this one. I kind of liked the professor framing to some degree.
Yeah.
I felt it really teased some beautiful principles out. It was a cool device that was used to really bring it through. So I guess the short answer is I really like that. And I don't know if I have a lot to say about the actual use of live action. I mean, it was a great way. You had to do something back then.
Yeah.
The tools we have today.
And just to be clear for people that haven't seen this, so the professor is telling the story and then we're cutting into scenes of the actual events itself. And I personally really love that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good frame, and starring in media res is a good way to go too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really clever and it worked very well. You know, it's old, and the videos they're very blurry. It's hard to see. And the one thing I was struck by with both of these movies is, you know, how we've become accustomed to living in the information age, where we can track down, you know, there's hundreds of videos and podcasts and interviews, and there's so much information on anything that we want to know. But when we're looking back at these series, you know, why did they do that? We don't know. Was it a budget choice? Was it a deliberate, you know, decision? What was the thinking? And we can't ask them, and none of them are still alive. I thought the professor kind of telling the story was very, very clever, and it worked very well. I wondered if some of those actors were kind of, it felt similar to like when a lot of stage actors transition to television, and they're still kind of really loud and, over the top intense, like you would be when you want the people in the back row to hear you.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to kind of the more subtle and more intimate depictions that we're used to with modern technology.
It did rather feel like a play, didn't it? And, as I was watching, I was struck. I hadn't known how much I needed my analogical, metaphorical portrayals of Jesus to wear tights and bodysuits. It was a little creepy.
Aslan, I think they had a good go at him.
Yeah. Well, they stayed closer to the script, and, that bit I like. I also noticed that some of as Chris and I were watching it last night, when I heard the actors do the lines, I bet paper money that the children in the Andrew Adamson 2005 version, I bet they watched this, because some of their inflections and tones seemed like they took them from this adaptation. So the later one, I think that the later actors watched this one.
A thought that I had with this is a little bit more to 1979, because I could let that one play out fully rather than chunks here. But I almost have a criticism to modern day television, like in movies. I don't think I really realized how much an incredible script and story and narrative does a lot of heavy lifting. Like I love this 1979 version. I thought there's critiques I'll make, of course, when we dive into that, and there's a couple of things that were frustrating, but nevertheless, like I wasn't sitting here thinking this is completely inadequate. I'm so glad we have modern CGI that turned this into something. I was just as interested and intrigued with this for an hour and a half as I was for the regular ones, which begs the question: is all of the hoopla and happenstance and all this stuff that's going on around a script as important as I thought? I'm not saying it's nothing. It is an enjoyable experience, but you have a good script, you have a good message, you have something you're engaged in. I mean, the medium is slightly less important.
It also makes me think, as they're contemplating the new adaptations by Netflix, the story works so well that if you stay as close as you can to the story while representing it cinematically, dramatically, that's absolutely fine, and you have to make choices. But if you stay close to the story and don't try to get all clever and innovative and insert yourself, I think that you'll do fine. So let's just hope that they pay attention to that.
You know what I found myself thinking too? Andrew and I, the last time we were in England for the Lewis conference, we went to see The Lion King at the West End, and the kind of incredible technology, the way that they came up with representing animals on the stage. I thought I would love to see them do that with Narnia. I wonder if they could use that same kind of creativity and vibrance to represent all these fantastical creatures. Of course, they didn't have that back then, but I would love to see it.
And as someone who saw several productions of the various Chronicles of Narnia in Oxford as a little boy, I really got echoes of that watching this. And I think wow,
I thought I flexed.
I was gonna say, it's like Andrew has all of his things. This is like I was there as a child.
but I was there when the deep magic was made. Well, then I'll just put away the set dressing from the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie from Mr. Tumnus's house from 2005. That was right on there. So
I'll just put away my Pints when Jack mug. Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
I'll put away my Pints with Jack pint glass.
More to come on that, by the way, in the future, guys. Just
Peter Kavner bottle cap.
Anyway,
all right. Well,
I was praising your wife, Andrew, because I think the connection to the Lion King is a really good point, as well as I'd also say the Logos Theatre. They've done fantastic stuff in this area. I would love to see that basically released as a movie. When I actually interviewed them, I said, please tell me you're recording this so that at some point when copyrights have expired, we can actually everyone can see what you guys have been doing. Because I do think that the theatrical production, Lewis's works lend themselves very well to it, because in the theatre they do what I think Lewis did very well, which is drawing with very few lines and letting your imagination fill in everything else.
Yeah. I like a production that leaves room for me as the listener, the participant, the viewer. So
Now, Andrew, I heard a rumor that Warnie watched this, and I heard a reference that there was a reference to this in his diaries. Do you know about that?
Oh, dear Lord. Now you ask me. Did you ask me this before and I forgot to look it up?
That might be something that I would do, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, hang on.
You dig into that. We'll continue
dig
chatting.
Into that. Yes.
Next year, we're going to be doing the BBC adaptation, and that's quite notorious for the White Witch overacting and chewing the scenery. And I'd actually say for both of the movies that I sent you guys, the witch is kind of giving it some. But
Sunday, September 10th, 1967. This evening, we had the final television installment of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I hope the listener response will be large enough to encourage ATV to do some of the others, for this production has been admirable both as regards acting and production. Not a jarring note in either from start to finish. How I wish Jack could have seen it. So there you go.
Oh,
wonderful.
That's cool. Well done, Andrew.
wow.
After talking about the witch certainly giving this her all, any thoughts about the acting? So the chief characters that we watch in these clips are the witch, Aslan, Mrs. Beaver, and some of the Pevensey children.
I have the stronger comment on 1979 one, but I didn't like the Aslans. I think I struggled because maybe the movies did get me where I thought they did a good job with just slow, deliberate, intentional. And then I didn't get that feeling with these. It almost like made them too normal. But I personally struggled. That was actually my number one critique of the 1979 one, but it also kind of carried into here. I understand it's hard to do this because here you're asking a human to do it. At least it's specifically this adaptation, which makes it a little more tough. But
it's a very anthropomorphic lion. He's very much like a man. And one of the things that I think we said when we were discussing the book was, I think we spoke about the picture of the Queen and Aslan talking together, and the Pauline Baines illustration, which shows Aslan up on his hind legs walking next to her. Mm-hmm. Which,
my least favorite Pauline Baines illustration ever.
But what was really funny is in this black and white adaptation, the image is swapped around, but they're clearly drawing on that when Aslan goes away and talks to the witch.
Yeah, this was a good find.
They've paid attention to the books, and for me, that's an excellent start. By the way, I found one more reference from July 9th, 1967, so that places when it was aired. It was aired at least as early as Saturday, July 8th. But you probably already had that. On television last night, he says Sunday, July 9th. On television last night, I saw the opening installment of Jack's Lion, Witch, and Wardrobe, by which I was agreeably surprised. Lucy is good and looks the part, and Tumnus comes off. We got only as far as Lucy's return from her first visit to Narnia, so one cannot yet form any opinion of the whole thing, but so far it's very promising, and I think Jack would have been pleased with it. No hint so far of what he feared, a touch of Disneyland. Up to date, the other three children have had practically nothing to do and have left no impression. The scenery was first-rate, and there really was something of magic about the transition from the wardrobe to the dim-lit, snow-covered Narnia. How I wish Jack was here to talk it over with me.
That's an incredibly revealing passage for anyone who's making a new movie adaptation of just like
adaptation. Yeah.
What's the number one fear of C.S. Lewis? You now know it, assuming Warnie's communicating it properly. Not to be Disneyland, and he wants the scenery and the magical experience to both come through.
Yeah.
The only comment I have on the acting comes back again to what I mentioned at the beginning is, that tends to be everybody is, on a scale of 1 to 10 at an 11 in their delivery. And we're accustomed to, if you've watched a really good movie or series where an actor's face just says something, or, a little, like you can see the expression pass, or in Andrew and I've talked a little bit about this in regard to Talia faces and other things. Not all anger is red hot anger. Sometimes anger is cold.
Mm-hmm.
And all the anger in me is is volcanic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I had read some comments by My friend Tilda Swinton.
Who's that?
She plays the White Witch in the movie that you've seen. The Fools.
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
That's
I met her.
cool.
She's not my friend, but I met her once
Well, that's cool still.
and have a picture with her.
Us Lions.
Yes, us lions. Yes. And don't worry, I've got plenty to settle me a bit. So yeah, here's the picture of Tilda and me. I need to clean that up and brighten that up a little bit. So
That's cool.
Send
yeah.
that to me. I'll stick it on the website.
Okay, I shall.
Send it to me. I'll use AI to clean it up.
I'll post it to both of you, but yeah, do me right.
I am very tempted. I'm going to have AI do something to it.
And I'm going to send it to Christin too. Anyway, she did say that when she portrayed the witch, she didn't want to be quite as bombastic, and she thought that quiet rage would be more frightening.
Yeah.
Than loud rage, white rage instead of red rage. And so she was, I think, deliberately departing from some of the previous portrayals.
And I think that would be one of my pieces of advice for the upcoming Netflix adaptation. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
when you see somebody who it can certainly not shout, and it's clear that they're angry, it's like, uh-oh, now we're in real trouble.
Mm-hmm.
You'd never guess to have toddlers, would you?
Yeah.
Now, there were a couple of bold choices. I've categorized them in this adaptation. First of all, there's a song as they're dancing along. You only get this on the audio-only episode, but basically once they discover that spring is happening, they start a little song and have a bit of a laugh. There's a line when the witch is talking about what happens if she basically doesn't get to sacrifice Edmund. It's one of the things where they changed the line. It's very faithful in a lot of the language, but here she says perish in a holocaust rather than perish in blood and water, which is the book line. And so I was a little confused as to that choice. Maybe they were just trying to use a word that if you don't know what a holocaust is, you're probably too young, so let's protect you from it. Maybe.
I wondered about that too, because I mean, to give you props, I didn't notice it the first time I watched it. I had wondered, they also changed the reason the kids are in the professor's house. They say that the parents are off on an archaeological expedition. And I wondered if this is 1967, if everybody was kind of did not want to talk about World War II, did not want to think about it, did not want to trigger, not that they were aware of trigger warnings, but they had their own way of avoiding things, right? That they didn't want to talk about. And wasn't there war in other parts of the world going on at this point in the 60s?
Oh, yeah.
And I wondered if they just wanted to stay away from that. But if they wanted to stay away from that, then why would they use the word Holocaust? I don't know.
Yeah.
Wish we could ask them.
Exactly. One thing I did note as being actually particularly good when we're talking about the portrayal of Aslan, I thought his roar when the Queen says, "How do I know that you're going to keep your promises?"
Yeah.
I actually thought that was pretty good.
That was a proper roar.
Yeah. But one thing I didn't like was when the girls, when they wake up in the night and then they come out and they see Aslan and they follow him, the portrayal here is almost like they have surprised him. Whereas, I didn't like that. Whereas in the book, it's very clear he's walking and then he sort of slowly turns and then addresses them. He hasn't been fooled. You don't sneak up on a lion, for goodness sake. and they actually even disobey Aslan a little bit when he says, "Okay, stay here." He goes off through the bushes and they have a little conversation. It's like, "Oh, we're going to go a little closer."
Well, they've been so faithful to the most part to the book in the ways that really matter. But just to put an or in for the whole spiritual analogy and so on, it's pretty consistent through the books. Aslan as that Christ figure, and he behaves as Christ would do. And Aslan would not be surprised that the girls were following him. He knows, not only as a lion, but also as that spiritual Christ-like figure. He knows all. And so I didn't care for that either.
Although he is a little in the book, we've been reading Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe in Diving Deeper, the rector's class at my church, which is broadcast live at 5:00 Eastern time every Sunday, and videos available at churchofthemessiah.com in case you want them. But we've been watching or reading the doing kind of a table read where people do the different voices and the narrator, and then reading some of Lewis's essays about story. And one of the things that we noticed just this last week is that Aslan kind of doesn't pay attention to things right towards when he goes to be killed. At one point he says, what's that? And so he's really overcome. We've also noticed one of our number has those old paperbacks that that most of us grew up with. The ones that were properly ordered, the little white ones or whatever. And as we're reading it out loud, we have found probably a dozen textual differences between the version then and the version that we're reading now. We're reading the full color one. So, but yeah, I think that there is something to be said for Aslan to be being duller. But yeah, I don't think. Well, you know how I feel about Susan. If they disobeyed Aslan, it was Susan's fault.
Wow.
Once all the copyright stuff is done and dusted, I look forward to somebody doing a corpus Narnium, basically an analytical corpus, a critical edition with all of
variorum,
with all of the textual variants and the footnotes.
Yep.
But anything else you want to say about the 60s adaptation of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe before we move on to the one from the 70s?
I just certainly hope that we come across the other episodes. That would be lovely at some point.
It does seem that they are probably lost forever because it was very expensive to keep the recording material, and so more often than not, they were then reused and other things recorded over. It's the same reason why we don't have all of Lewis's recordings from the BBC.
Sure. And we just discovered an actual copy of the Magna Carta in the Harvard Library. So, anything's possible. And if so, I wonder if AI couldn't maybe clean it up a little bit. But
Oh, look, Matt, he threw you a bone.
Did you see the one I put in the chat?
Oh, not yet.
Just now?
Yeah. Well, not that chat.
I do think as we have a conversation, I'm mindful, having said some very point blank critical things about some of the editions of Narnia movie, film, TV series before, that every one of these has come out at a different time, and people have loved it, and it has blessed their hearts, inspired them to read the stories. People worked very hard with whatever resources they had to bring Lewis's books to life. And so while we're discussing them critically, while we note things that we like or we didn't like, I'm glad that we can, appreciate all the hard work that went into it. And that for everyone that I just can't stand or makes my skin crawl, or, there are people who love that. And that was their entry into Lewis. So I'm glad there's room for all of us. And I'm glad that we can talk about it in a respectful way, even while we notice the strengths and the weaknesses.
See, Christin, this is why we invite you on the show. You raise our level of discourse. Now, let's talk about the 70s movie, which I hated. No, I didn't. I thought it was great. So yeah, let's talk about the movie that was released on April 1st, 1979. And as I mentioned earlier in the episode, there were two versions. There was one with English voices and one with American voices. If you were brought up on the American voices one, I'm sorry. I actually do think the English ones are better, but who knows? Maybe I'm biased.
We've lost Matt.
Oh my goodness. All right, please describe what he's just sent us.
But you need to work on my face. I look like an Italian pasta maker. My face is rounder than that. That is not my face. Tilda's face looks good. So Matt has done an AI cleanup of this kind of grainy, out of focus photo that I had with Tilda Swinton many years ago. I think she looks great.
Hers, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely.
It did make you look.
But I mean, they have many more images of her.
Yes,
to use. And then Matt, it's got one with me standing next to her with her eyes white and her crown and her gown, and yeah, it's pretty creepy. In her house, about to be turned into a statue, I think.
Although, quite frankly, Matthew, you should have made Andrew a fawn. I mean, come on. Do I have to tell you to do these things? I thought that was obvious. So while Matthew is turning Andrew into a fawn,
send AI to my website, dude.
Once again, all of the actors that voiced here, they did pretty well. And it actually turns out that this was quite a troubled production. I think it was that they lost the producer right at the beginning and they had a very, very tight deadline. But the actors went on to do things like Doctor Who again, the movie Heidi, which I loved as a child, The Blue Lagoon, A Man for All Seasons. Andrew, I thought you'd like this one. Victor Spinetti, he was the Foot in the Beatles' Help, and he was the TV director of A Hard Day's Night.
Yes, of course. I remember the name Victor Spinetti. Absolutely.
And Sheila Hancock, who played the witch in this version, she's done loads of stuff. I actually recognized her as soon as I saw the picture. She was the mother in Three Men and a Little Lady, and she was the grandma in The Boy with the Striped Pajamas.
Okay.
And Mr. Beaver, he's voiced by Arthur Lowe, and I recognize that voice immediately. He played Captain Mannering in Dad's Army, which is classic British comedy. In my digging around this, I found that there actually was a prequel planned. And actually, Christy from The Lion's Call, she has about 150 storyboards that she bought off eBay. Andrew, you missed out.
I was busy buying set dressing from Mr. Tumnus's house.
Oh, I think she might actually give you a run for your money in terms of Narnia memorabilia.
And geek bravado, yeah.
But much like the previous adaptation, most people in our Slack channel hadn't seen the 1979 movie either. But Robert Smith did comment when he saw the name Bill Melendez in the opening credits, because he knew that he was involved in the Peanuts TV specials. And it was actually his son, Stephen, who was the producer for this adaptation. He even got an Emmy for it. So despite all of the troubled production, it seems to be very well received. But I have a few questions in particular about this adaptation because we have got much more to work with. But I'm looking for general impressions, first of all. Christin.
I really liked it. I think I originally saw it with the British accents, which are far superior.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I didn't see it when I was a little girl, but as an adult, I saw it and I liked it. And it's much more faithful than some more contemporary versions. And, I think it's well done. I think it holds up. It reminded me, watching it this time more critically, we started with the American version by accident and then quickly switched over to the British version.
Yes.
But the inflection of when I saw the notes about the Peanuts connection, the inflection of the voice actors reminded me of the Peanuts kids and some of the animation. And it also reminded me, oddly enough, of the animation in Frosty the Snowman, which was done about 10 years earlier.
Sure.
But if you watch those classic cartoons, it feels like those classic Christmas cartoons. I think it's really well done.
Matthew, you're up next.
I was massively, pleasantly surprised. I completely got absorbed into it. I was on a plane ride and just watched it like the entire time. I was wondering the entire time how they did it. Is it sketches where they constantly are resketching the image or like erasing part of it? I mean, I had no idea how there was so much detail. Like the time when, I can't remember who was crying, if it was Mr. Tumnus, but then the tears coming down, I thought were beautiful.
A lot of time was clearly put into his animation. I would say he had the most expressive face out of all of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was certainly given the most attention.
I was incredibly impressed. I would genuinely love to know how long it took, how many images were created to do a singular scene where you clearly know there's like 20 different images. Is it just, erasing? I was honestly curious by the process a little bit. My main critique was Aslan. I just really struggled with Aslan. So all the way up I think I looked at like minute 57. Every time before he came, I was like, this is fantastic. And then I had a little bit hard time getting over what just didn't feel majestic or didn't feel quite the magnanimity of the
magnanimity.
This is what we do most episodes.
Okay. So, and I think Matt's trying out for the new Liberty Mutual commercial. Liberty Bibbity?
Liberty. Liberty. Yeah. So anyways, I really loved it. I was impressed. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it kept to the script. And I don't have too much more detail to say.
When I was teaching my C.S. Lewis class at Houston Christian High School for 7 years, we would have movie day every couple of weeks. And we would go through the different editions of Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because that was the Narnia book that we read for the class. And so I remember pulling this out and thinking, oh, this is going to be cheeseball, and actually really loving how closely it stayed to the script. I thought the colors were a little bit weird, and Tumnus looked a little
Yeah.
devilish to me.
Yeah, that stuck out to
But
me.
The original Tumnus.
Green hair.
Yeah. But the original Tumnus was actually this kind of really creepy Vertumnus. Is a really creepy character in Ovid's Metamorphoses who tries to seduce Pomona and woo her back to his house. And so, I mean, he's kind of this creeper figure in literature. And so the devilish red was not too bad. But overall, I liked it. I thought it was a pretty decent adaptation. If somebody had never seen Narnia, I think Christin and I were commenting, this wouldn't be a bad one to recommend, I think.
Yeah. It's really interesting that two of you have spoken about the drawing quality, because I think there are a lot of tricks that they do there, because I think they had a very, very crunched timeline. And so actually in the show notes, I took a screenshot of some of the battle, and it does look like it was a very quick sketch. It's like, I actually think I might have been able to do better than this. But overall, I thought it was really, really well done. But there are enough things in there that I think betray that this was done quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, it makes me a little sad. It's like, oh, if they just had a little bit more time, could we have polished this up some more? But all in all, I definitely did really enjoy it. And much like the previous one that we looked at, it's a little different in the black and white version because we begin with the professor talking. So it's in media res even more so in this one, because the first thing that happens is what we heard at the beginning of this episode. Lucy's coming out of the wardrobe, and she's just come back from Narnia, and that's where we're dropped in. And then we get her story later in a flashback as she's lying on her bed.
And let me just jump in and apologize. In media res, Matt, I mean, in media res, for those who don't know.
Oh,
What's in media res?
It's my point. And listeners, we love each other, and Matt loves being rizzed and so, or, being teased. And so it's intended in good fun. In media res, literally in Latin means in the middle of matters or in the middle of things. And the way that classical literature starts, like Homer or the Aeneid, whatever, classical literature starts in the middle of matters. You don't start the story at the beginning. You start it in the middle. And then you flash back to what happens earlier. And that's how Star Wars starts. That's how a lot of medieval literature starts that way. And so that's one of the arguments for reading the Narnia books, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first, because the beginning of Narnia, we don't find until book 6, Magician's Nephew. And so even that story starts in media res. And you get that sense in Tolkien as well. So not only does Narnia itself start in media res, but this portrayal starts in the middle of the story. And so I think somebody's deliberately trying to do that.
I definitely think that this was, yet again, a very faithful adaptation. They even went to the level of detail of Lucy reading Mr. Tumnus's bookshelf. So Silas, men, monks,
Silenus,
and
yes.
all Silenus. And also, one of my favorite things about this adaptation, we have a blonde Lucy. It's like, finally, somebody read the text.
Yes. But as for Lucy,
I
Lewis
loved
says,
Lucy.
She was always gay and golden-haired, and all the princes in those parts desired her to be their queen, and her own people called her Lucy the Valiant. It almost reminds me of Lewis's best book. That sounds a little bit like the end of Till We Have Faces.
She was so charming and so sweet in the movie. It's my favorite character. Loved her.
Are there any particular areas of this that you want to talk about? I had a whole load of notes that I'd made while I was watching this.
I felt like the scene of the forgiveness of Edmund was beautiful. I felt like Lucy's forgiveness of Mr. Tumnus was beautiful. I felt like it just stuck out to me. I know those are things in other adaptions as well, but they just kind of stuck out to me here. Maybe they would have stuck out in the other ones too. I didn't rewatch those, but yeah, those stuck out to me.
I thought the clothes choices for the kids were very appropriate to the time in which this movie was made. Mm-hmm. It looked kind of like an episode of the Scooby-Doo mysteries.
Yes, it did.
I wasn't a great fan of being able to hear some of their thoughts. I generally don't like that technique. Mm-hmm. I absolutely hated it in June, and not the most recent adaptation, the earlier one, because so much of the book is you're reading people's thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so they did the same thing for the movie, and I wasn't a great fan of that. Now, we spoke about the witches acting enthusiastically. It was like off the charts. If the previous one went to 11, this one went to like 50. It was almost slapstick, particularly when she was talking to Edmund and shouting at him, picking him up, and then just like dropping him.
I think that taking a page out of Steve Beebe's book, I wonder who the audience was, and I'm guessing it's for an audience of children. And so, for an audience of children in the 70s, having grown up in the 70s, I think that I wonder how it was received then. I think it wouldn't have been too bad.
Yeah, I think this was definitely pitched at for younger children. I remember watching this in school when I was 7, maybe.
Did you watch it at Oxford?
I didn't watch it in Oxford, near Oxford.
Okay.
But I did wonder whether or not I should show this to Alexander, because this Holy Week we read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So on Easter Sunday, Jesus came back and so did Aslan. And I wasn't sure about it. In the end, I decided not to show it to him because I think some of this is a little bit too intense for a nearly 4-year-old.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. And I actually think they handled the death of Aslan wonderfully because the entire movie itself is very fast-paced. There's not a whole lot of sitting around until Aslan dies, and then everything grinds to a halt, and they manage to sit with that for long enough. One thing, though, that was particularly surprising, but you can sort of understand why, because this thing's only about 90 minutes. So they've got a lot of book to get into. When all of the children go into Narnia, they're not chased into the wardrobe by Mrs. McCreevy or some magic. They literally, they finish with the professor, and then they all just like, all right, I guess we're going to go to Narnia. And they all just walk in together, which is a bit weird.
Yeah. It was really interesting to me. There were a lot of little changes that they made that are like no big deal. And I'm like, I can see why you would do that. There were also places where they stuck so faithfully to the book. And I was like, really? That's more important than some of the other. You're going to cut Father Christmas, but you're going to make sure you include that line? I don't know. So it was interesting choices.
Would you mind just explaining to people that haven't seen it, what do they do with Father Christmas?
He's nowhere to be found. So Aslan gives the children their gifts. In one sense, I'm fine with that because ultimately, of course, they do come from Aslan, right?
The giver of every good and perfect gift. I know.
Yes.
I thought the same thing.
Yeah, but that was interesting. They did not. I don't know if maybe they didn't want to mess up kids' Santology theology. I don't know.
He is in there. Father Christmas is the giver of the gifts. They just sort of come. They just everything's done off screen. So Mr. Beaver disappears, and then they come back, and then they meet all of the sorry, Matt's been sending me AI images. We're getting pretty perfect, mate. We're getting really close. But yes, so Mr. Beaver disappears off screen, comes back, and then they all go up, and that's when they encounter the little tea party that the witch is going to stumble upon later, and they find out that Father Christmas has been. So he's there, but again, you can sort of understand. You got 90 minutes. You don't have time for anything excess, and Father Christmas is kind of an excess.
I disagree. The description of Father Christmas as so big and so glad and so real, and that we only see his kind in Narnia, and I mean that's so imaginatively important. But I think I have a good explanation of where Father Christmas is. I think he's going to visit Tom Bombadil. Listeners, those of you who know Tom Bombadil, famous episode from The Lord of the Rings, but Peter Jackson omitted Bombadil from the Lord of the Rings movies. So
thank goodness,
and for good reason. For good reason. I think a good adaptation could be done, but for the same reason, I think it's a good idea to maybe just skip over Father Christmas because there are other things that they needed to be getting on with regards to the plot.
Sure.
One thing I was very disappointed by, there were no warnings about keeping wardrobe doors open.
Yeah.
Whereas in the book, I think you've got 5 warnings, don't do it. And I think we've got Owen Barfield's wife to thank for that. In this one, you get nothing. And in fact, the wardrobe closes its doors of its own accord. So the kids go in and the doors go, clop.
Oh, no.
So considering this was aimed at younger kids, it's actually funny. I have to keep stopping my Lucy from going into the wardrobe in my office. And I keep telling her it's a very foolish thing to shut oneself up into a wardrobe.
Yes.
And she looks at me and goes, oh, and runs back in.
Oh, that's a good point. These days it would come with a warning, right?
But yeah, actually speaking of the warnings, I was talking about the intensity and why I'm not showing this to Alexander yet. The scene where the queen is doing her thing about Narnia being overcome with fire and water, my goodness, terrifying. How I didn't have nightmares after that, I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Well, actually, there's a reason. We were talking about it some with my in my class. The narrator often breaks in at the most scary moments, right? When he's describing the witch's army, the narrator steps in and says, I can't tell you, I could tell you more, but if I did, the adults would probably not let you read this book anymore. And so when there's really scary moments all throughout the Seven Narnias, Lewis, almost in a paternal way or in a avuncular way, in a caring way, kind of steps in, knowing that children are likely being read this book at bedtime. And when it gets super scary, he steps in and he breaks the enchantment and he kind of pulls them back into their experience of reading. I think that's really helpful.
I wondered if, to your point, David, about the witch being bombastic to the point of slapstick, if maybe that wasn't a deliberate choice, because the bigger and broader and more ridiculous she is, in some ways, the less scary.
Yeah. Yeah. But having said that, the stone table scene is intense. I think it's wonderfully done. Actually, I would even go so far as to say I think it's my favorite adaptation of that scene. But one thing that I loved was that after Aslan's resurrection, we have him playing with the girls. It just feels like much more time is spent there than in any other adaptation that I've seen. And they also added something. If you notice that as Aslan was jumping around, wherever he landed, flowers started springing up from the ground.
That's great.
Which is actually something from Welsh mythology. Olwyn, apparently, wherever she would walk, flowers would just grow up wherever she stepped. And so I think that Celtic callback, I think Lewis would have appreciated that one.
It's not all that dissimilar to the way that Aslan kind of sings the world into existence in The Magician's Nephew, and things all just start growing. So
one thing that I found rather funny, I wonder if how much thought was put behind this. In the battle, you see Edmund fighting with his sword, and he's left-handed.
Oh, interesting.
Father Andrew loves to point out about the Latin for that is rather sinister.
Yes, absolutely.
So the Latin term, and I'm saying this as someone who is on day 79 of his streak in Duolingo of Latin, that's literally what left-handed is, the masculine form in Latin.
Sinistre. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so the idea that things that are left-sided, they're always treated with a certain amount of suspicion. And the fact that Edmund was made left-handed, I thought was very funny. But it's one of those questions you're never going to get answered. It's like, was that done on purpose, or is it just you wanted the brothers fighting together and you didn't want you wanted their faces to be seen, so their swords had to be on opposite sides?
Right. I love how thoughtful you've been in approaching this, and it's a good reminder that you can enjoy things on many levels, and you can get a lot out of things when you take the time to look at them closely. And I love that Lewis inspires that, because so much of his work, all of it, the more you look at it, the more you see.
Well, I love seeing something. It's like, oh, I wonder the amount of thought that went into that. So actually, before we started recording, Matt was talking about one of our current projects, which is some stoneware mugs with the Pints of Jack logo on them. And he was talking about that a lot of people don't see all of the work that goes into making something like that happen. But I have a real enjoyment when I see something and I realize, like, oh, a ton of work went into either this decision or all the things around to orchestrate for this particular thing to happen. When I watch something like this, that's always what's running through my mind. It's like, what were they thinking? What is it that they were actually trying to do? Because particularly given that we've got new Narnia movies coming out, some things that might have been done in earlier versions might not have been pulled off. You might be tempted to say, oh, well, don't do that because it didn't work. But actually, was there an idea behind that is worth saving, even if the particular implementation didn't get pulled off?
Yeah, it's nice to see them, giving a yeoman's effort. And it's nice that there were some good movie versions before the ones that we that we have that remain. So
I did think the death of the witch, because it is a question of, like, how are you going to deal with that? Aslan turns up at the battle, he lunges at the witch, and in the book, it basically, covers a curtain over it. It's like, we're not going to talk about too much what happens, but let's just say that the witch is gone. in this version, he sort of jumps down on her and she disappears in a puff of black smoke.
That's also pretty courteous for the young children and their parents. And so, it could be pretty graphic.
It's like, Mummy, where did that nice lady go? The lion ate her, sweetheart.
She went to visit Father Christmas.
Yes, and Tom Bombadil, yes.
Wow.
And do you want to know, your goldfish is there as well, the pet one that you really loved.
Oh, no, they handled it well. And I'm, going back to the scary scenes. I mean, they were appropriately scary. They really, if you're looking for the gospel message, for the weight of sin and the penalty paid and the power, I mean, good and evil are portrayed really well in this movie, and as is the defeat of evil. So I think they did a really good job.
I was surprised they cut short Lucy's healing of Edmund, because I don't think that would have taken much more. But in this version, she gives him the cordial, and there's no back and forth about Aslan saying, hey, other people are also hurt. And Lucy saying, yes, but he's my brother. There's none of that in this version. She goes, okay, gonna go help other people.
Yeah.
But next to Aslan's death and resurrection, my favorite scene in this movie was the chasing of the white stag. And one thing I haven't mentioned throughout is the music in this version, I think, is wonderful. And so the sense of chase as the children are chasing after the stag and being drawn closer and closer back to the lamppost. I thought that was just wonderful, as well as the sort of the music cutting as soon as suddenly the kids tumble out of the wardrobe as children again.
I'm glad they included that too. I mean, I think it could have been easy to just kind of wrap up. Like, it almost feels like the end when they're all on their thrones.
Mm-hmm.
But both of these were, to show the children returning back to their life. Although so this is just a contemporary note. So you talked about the wardrobe doors, right?
Mm-hmm.
I felt uncomfortable with the professor's emphasis on secrecy.
Yeah, which is in the book. It is in the book.
It makes a lot of sense in that context. But I was like, oh, I don't know if that reads as well today.
Mm.
But again, there are places where they were very faithful and did it really beautifully, and then other places where you're like,
Yeah.
I loved the professor's massive mustache.
Yes.
They didn't hold back.
It's the model of a modern major general.
Exactly.
Definitely has echoes of that.
Yeah, it does.
Well, anything else you want to say about this adaptation?
I think it's fun to have looked at it and then to look along it, and I hope our listeners will find it fun too. I'm glad for especially the 79 adaptation, because I don't have any trouble recommending that. That's not a bad way at all to visualize Narnia. And it's not modern and, Avengers and, and the smash boom of all of the kind of, beautiful animations and all the CGI and all the rest. But it's a really good way to have the story. And I know lots of families, homeschool families, things like that, where they'll have a family movie night. And if the kids are not just bored by something that's old, Kristen's family, they watch old movies all the time and quote from them backwards and forwards. And so I think, honey, we should probably, if they don't know it, we should probably recommend it to, to some of our nieces and nephews and their families.
Yeah, I think some of them have watched it. Our Lucy has, but I think others have yet to discover it. So that would be a fun movie night, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I would say at least 50% of the stuff that Alexander watches was recorded pre-1985.
Good.
Well done.
I'm just schooling him on all the stuff that I loved.
Yeah, that's great.
That's fun, isn't it?
But watching this, it did make me wonder again. And I remember when Netflix first bought the franchise, my chief recommendation was like, give us animated versions. Then that way we can avoid everything, all of the problems about talking animals and the uncanny valley and just not quite pulling it off. I think that's much easier to handle in animation. And watching and enjoying, particularly this one from the 70s, I would still really like to see it. And I still think it might even be an option for the Greta Gerwig universe to maybe have one of these episodes be entirely animated.
There's something to be said for that. I don't really particularly like animation as well. But, if you do it well, and that's certainly another genre that's immensely popular and could draw a good audience, I think.
Matthew, any closing thoughts?
No. Can't wait to talk about the next adaptation in 12 months.
Adaptation.
Adaptation.
We're gonna get that.
Yes. Yes.
But actually, I'm pretty sure you're gonna hate the next adaptation because it's the BBC one, which I grew up with and absolutely adore.
Oh, Lucy is so unfortunate.
You're always so mean. I love the series.
Stop.
Yeah, thank you, Christin.
I just said unfortunate. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank Dr. Christin Ditchfield-Lazo for coming on the show and for keeping Andrew in order.
Yes.
Is there anything else you would like to say or advertise before we wrap up?
Yeah, it's just always a joy to be with you. I so enjoy the conversation. And so thanks for having us.
Lovely to have you.
If you want to see her live and see 2/3 of Pints with Jack or 3/4 of Pints with Jack, David and Christin and I will be at the Petoskey C.S. Lewis Festival in September. We'll be and the theme is Till We Have Faces. We'll be doing, I think, a live Pints with Jack something there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think that'll be our first live broadcast, right?
It will. I'm scared.
I'll keep it in check and I'll prep. So, and I think that we should toast to Lazo Major, Christin Ditchfield-Lazo. So to Christin.
Indeed. Good save. Good save.
Cheers.
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 Well, I hear the final calls. For last drinks, we want to thank our intern, Julia, our sound engineers, Taylor and Sarah, and all our top tier Patreon supporters, which we have some exciting stuff in development.
Yes, we do.
Dan, Jody, Robert, Mark, Rowdy, Angela, David, Peter, Kate, James, John, Sarah, Rebecca, Meg, and Brian, Joanna, Kelly, Stephen, Gary, Paul, Kay, Becca, Shane, Thomas, Amanda, Joelle, Erica, Matt, James, Bud, Otto, Kevin, Mark, and of course, we want to thank all of those for listening. All the co-hosts pray for our listeners every time we release an episode. And if you enjoyed this episode, maybe check out one of these adoptions, one of these versions. And
David put adaptations, struck it through, and put adaptions for Matt in the notes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join us again next time.
we'll continue going.
Further up.
And further in.
Cheers.
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 Cheers.